Have you ever been completely underestimated because of where you came from? What if I told you that the person everyone dismissed as worthless turned out to be the only one who could save everything? This is the story of Marcus Thompson, a night janitor whose secret would leave his arrogant boss absolutely speechless. Stay with me because what happens next will completely change how you see hidden potential in people. The fluorescent lights pushed his cleaning cart down the marble hallway of the 42nd floor. The Seattle skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows, a testament to the billions of dollars flowing through this tech empire every day. But Marcus wasn't here to admire the view. He was here to clean up after people who barely acknowledged his existence. At 26, Marcus had been working the night shift at Sterling Tech for 3 years. His mother shift for over a decade before her arthritis forced her into early retirement. Marcus took over not by choice, but by necessity. Someone had to pay for her medical bills and keep their small apartment in the Rainier Valley neighborhood. Richard Sterling, the 42-year-old CEO, strutted through the executive floor that Tuesday morning, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished floor, his perfectly tailored suit and slicked back, kind of man who inherited wealth and convinced himself he'd earned it. Sterling barely glanced at Marcus as he emptied wastebaskets, treating him like part of the furniture. The morning sun streamed through the windows as Marcus finished cleaning Sterling's corner office. He couldn't help but notice the multiple computer screens displaying complex code and security protocols. As Sterling entered with his morning espresso, he found Marcus still there. Carried that particular brand of disdain reserved for service workers. "Your shift ended an hour ago." Marcus looked up from wiping down the desk, his dark eyes calm and steady. "Just finishing up, sir." "Almost done." Sterling's assistant, Jennifer Walsh, appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Sterling, the quarterly review meeting starts in 5 minutes. The board is already assembled." Sterling waved dismissively toward Marcus. "Get him out of here." He turned to Jennifer, lowering his voice but not enough. "You know how these people are always looking for something to steal or gossip about." Marcus felt the familiar sting of assumptions based on his job and background. He'd heard variations of this his entire life, but he simply nodded, gathered his supplies, and headed for the door. As he reached the threshold, he heard Sterling talking to Jennifer about their cybersecurity concerns. "Department is scrambling, but they can't seem to identify the source." Sterling's voice carried worry beneath his usual arrogance. "If someone breaches our client database, we're looking at lawsuits that could destroy us." Marcus paused, his hand on the doorframe. He knew more about cybersecurity than Sterling's entire IT department combined. What Sterling didn't know was that Marcus had been quietly monitoring the company's digital infrastructure for noticed vulnerabilities that kept him awake at night. Growing up in a single-parent household in Rainier Valley, Marcus had found solace in computers. His mother worked double shifts to afford a second-hand laptop when he was 12. From that moment, Marcus devoured every programming language, every cybersecurity protocol, every piece of technology knowledge he could find. Online forums became his university. Late nights became his classroom. While he was writing code. While they were at parties, he was solving complex algorithms. He'd applied to several universities with his self-taught skills, but financial reality hit hard. Scholarships required documentation of achievements from recognized institutions, recommendation letters from teachers who knew his potential. Marcus had neither. His high school counselor had steered him toward practical careers, never imagining the quiet kid from the poor neighborhood. Sterling's sharp voice cut through his thoughts. "Are you eavesdropping on private business conversations?" Marcus turned back, his expression neutral. "No, sir, just leaving." Sterling stepped closer, his 6-foot frame attempting to intimidate Marcus's slightly shorter but solid build. "Listen carefully. You're here to clean, not to listen. That's all you're capable of understanding anyway. You're just a maid's kid following in mommy's footsteps. Don't get ideas like physical blows." He'd heard similar dismissals his whole life, but they never stopped hurting. His mother had sacrificed everything for him, working her hands raw so he could have opportunities she never had. The disrespect toward her felt worse than any insult directed at him. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably, clearly embarrassed by her boss's cruelty, but she said nothing. The corporate world had taught her to stay silent when power dynamics played. "Understood, sir. Have a good day." As Marcus left the office, Sterling turned to Jennifer with satisfaction. "That's how you handle the help." Keep them in their place, and they won't cause problems. But Marcus was already formulating plans that would soon turn Sterling's world upside down. The cybersecurity attacks Sterling mentioned weren't random. They were coordinated, sophisticated, and escalating. Marcus had been tracking them for weeks through. That evening, as Marcus began his shift, he carried with him not just cleaning supplies but a laptop hidden in his cart. The same laptop his mother had sacrificed to buy him 14 years ago, now upgraded and modified beyond recognition. It contained programs Marcus had written, security protocols he'd developed, and monitoring systems that would make government agencies envious. The Seattle rain drummed against the windows as Marcus worked through the cleaning routine, but the digital threats circling Sterling Tech like sharks. The company that treated him as invisible was about to discover they needed him more than they could possibly imagine. 3 days after Sterling's humiliating dismissal, Marcus arrived for his night shift to find Sterling Tech in chaos. The usually pristine lobby buzzed with activity even at 11 p.m. Security guards stood at every entrance, their faces tense. The glass conference room walls. Marcus could see Sterling pacing frantically during what appeared to be an emergency board meeting. The building's digital infrastructure was under siege, and Marcus knew it before anyone else had even suspected. Earlier that week, Marcus had detected sophisticated penetration attempts on Sterling Tech's servers. Using his personally developed monitoring systems, he'd traced the attacks to a coordinated group operating elegant and dangerous. They weren't just trying to steal data. They were systematically mapping the entire network architecture, preparing for something much larger. Marcus pushed his cart past the IT department on the 35th floor, where exhausted technicians hunched over computers, their faces illuminated by screens full of code they barely understood. Dave Chen, the head of IT security, was on the phone with what sounded like an expensive consulting voice carried desperation. "They're not just probing anymore. They got past our first 3 firewalls somehow. We're looking at potential access to client financial records, proprietary algorithms, everything that makes this company valuable." Marcus continued cleaning, invisible as always, but his mind raced. He'd been watching this attack develop for weeks. The hackers were patient, methodical. They'd spent months mapping Sterling Tech's vulnerability. Team saw as sudden crisis had been building like a slow-motion avalanche. The elevator carried Marcus to the executive floor, where Sterling's office remained lit, despite the late hour. Through the glass, Marcus could see Sterling on a video call, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. His tie was loose, his hair messy, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. The man who'd dismissed Marcus as worthless 3 days ago now looked like his world was crumbling. Surfaces. He overheard fragments of Sterling's conversation. The company faced potential bankruptcy if the hackers succeeded in their breach. Client contracts included massive penalty clauses for data breaches. Sterling Tech's stock price had already dropped 15% on rumors of security problems. "We've contacted the FBI's cybercrime division," Sterling was saying to someone on the screen, "but they say this type of attack typically takes weeks to already talking about pulling contracts." Marcus finished cleaning and moved to the next office, but his heart raced with possibility. He possessed the skills to stop this attack. Not just stop it, completely dismantle it and trace its origins in ways that would leave law enforcement amazed, but revealing those skills would expose everything about himself that he'd kept hidden. In the break room, Marcus encountered Jennifer Walsh, Sterling's assistant. In the morning, she looked exhausted and worried, her usual professional composure cracked. "Oh, Marcus," she said, surprised to see him working late tonight. Marcus nodded, continuing to clean around her. "Seems like everyone's working late tonight." Jennifer sighed deeply. "It's been insane. The whole company might collapse because of these hackers. Mr. Sterling is beside himself. The board is furious, and our biggest clients are threatening to leave." She paused. "I understand all this technical stuff, but it's really bad." If only she knew Marcus thought the irony was almost painful. Here was a company full of highly paid experts, consultants, and IT professionals, all scrambling to solve a problem that the man they dismissed as just a maid's kid could resolve in a single night. "I hope it works out," Marcus said simply, his voice neutral. Jennifer managed a weak smile. "Thanks, you know. You're really the only calm person else is panicking. But you just keep doing your job. I admire that. Marcus felt a strange warmth at her words. In 3 years, it was possibly the first time anyone at Sterling Tech had spoken to him as a human being, rather than as invisible help. As Jennifer left, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He retrieved his laptop from its hiding place in his cleaning cart and found an empty conference room. The Seattle skyline twinkled beyond, flew across the keyboard with practiced precision. First, he accessed Sterling Tech's network using administrative credentials he'd quietly obtained months ago through methods that were questionable, but not malicious. He'd originally intended to simply monitor for vulnerabilities, playing an unofficial guardian angel role. What Marcus found confirmed his worst fears. The attackers had penetrated deeper than anyone realized. They'd installed backdoors. The system. They weren't just planning to steal information, they were preparing to hold the entire company hostage with ransomware, while simultaneously selling client data on the dark web. The attack was scheduled to execute in less than 48 hours. Marcus worked through the night, his mind processing the digital battlefield like a chess grandmaster seeing 20 moves ahead. He began systematically dismantling the hackers' infrastructure, but carefully. Remove their access, but understand their entire operation, gather evidence, and ensure they couldn't simply attack again. As dawn approached, Marcus had successfully contained the immediate threat. But he'd done more than that. He'd turned the tables, using the hackers' own tools against them. He'd infiltrated their command servers, documented their identities, locations, and methods. He'd created a complete case file that would allow law enforcement. Criminal network, operating across multiple countries. The question now was how to reveal this information without exposing himself. By 6 a.m., as the day shift began arriving, Marcus had planted digital breadcrumbs throughout Sterling Tech's system. These would lead the IT team to discover the thwarted attack in a way that seemed like their own detective work, while simultaneously providing them with the evidence needed to involve law enforcement. Cleaning routine, exhaustion weighing on his shoulders. He'd just single-handedly saved Sterling Tech from complete destruction, but no one would ever know. As he prepared to leave at the end of his shift, Marcus wondered if this was how his mother had felt all those years, protecting him from problems he never knew existed. Marcus had barely slept for 2 hours when his phone buzzed with an emergency text message. Sterling Tech was requesting all shift. The digital breadcrumbs Marcus had planted were apparently working faster than he'd anticipated. By 10 a.m., Marcus stood in Sterling Tech's main auditorium alongside nearly 300 employees. The atmosphere crackled with nervous energy. Rumors had been flying since dawn. Someone had discovered the cyber attack. Someone had stopped it. Someone had provided law enforcement with enough evidence to make international arrests. Sterling stood bewildered. His usual arrogance had been replaced by genuine confusion, and what might have been the first humble expression Marcus had ever seen on his face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling began, his voice carrying across the packed auditorium. "I'm here to share extraordinary news. Last night, while our company faced the most serious threat in its 15-year history, something miraculous happened." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat in the staff who'd been called in from their off hours. He knew exactly what Sterling was about to announce. Our IT security team discovered that someone had completely neutralized a sophisticated cyber attack that could have destroyed our company. Sterling's voice grew stronger as he spoke, but more than that, this unknown individual provided law enforcement with detailed evidence that led to the arrest of 12 international cybercriminals this morning. Comprehensive digital investigations they've ever received. The auditorium erupted in surprised murmurs. Dave Chen, the head of IT, stood near the stage looking both proud and confused. Marcus knew Dave was intelligent enough to realize that his team hadn't actually accomplished this miracle, but not experienced enough to understand how it had really happened. Sterling continued, "The technical expertise required to not just stop this attack, but to beyond anything we have in-house, the FBI estimates that whoever did this work has skills that rival their top cybercrime specialists." Jennifer Walsh, sitting in the front row with other executives, turned to whisper something to her colleague. Marcus watched her profile, remembering their brief conversation in the break room just hours earlier. "Here's what we know," Sterling said, pulling up a presentation on the large screen behind him. "Would have encrypted all our data, stolen our client database, and demanded a ransom of $50 million. The projected damage to our company would have exceeded $200 million in losses, lawsuits, and reputation damage. The numbers drew gasps from the audience. Marcus had known the situation was serious, but hearing Sterling quantify the potential destruction made him realize the true scope of what he'd prevented his mother's simple life as a night janitor. It all seemed surreal when measured against the corporate empire he'd quietly saved. The individual who stopped this attack worked with surgical precision, Sterling continued, clicking to the next slide. They not only removed the malicious code but documented every aspect of the criminal operation. They provided detailed profiles of the attackers, traced financial transactions, and even recovered stolen data. Over the past 2 years, Marcus felt increasingly uncomfortable as Sterling painted him as some kind of digital superhero. The reality was much simpler. He'd seen a problem, possessed the skills to solve it, and had acted according to his moral compass. The same compass his mother had instilled in him through years of hard work and sacrifice. The FBI has informed us that this unknown individual's work will likely result in prosecutions. Other companies, Sterling said, his voice now carrying something that sounded almost like awe. They estimate this person's intervention last night prevented over $1 billion in potential damages across multiple industries. The audience was completely silent now, absorbing the magnitude of what they were hearing. Marcus glanced around at his fellow maintenance workers, security guards, and administrative staff. None of them would have from within their own ranks, which brings me to the purpose of this meeting, Sterling said, his tone shifting to something Marcus had never heard from him before. Humility. We are launching an immediate investigation to identify this individual. We believe they work for Sterling Tech or have access to our systems. The level of knowledge displayed about our infrastructure suggests someone with intimate familiarity with our operations. Marcus's heart began. Intended to remain anonymous, to let Sterling Tech's official IT team take credit for discovering and resolving the crisis. Now Sterling was actively hunting for him. We're offering a $5 million reward for information leading to the identification of this person, Sterling announced. But more than that, we want to offer them a position as our Chief Information Security Officer with a starting salary of $400,000 annually, plus equity in the exploded into excited chatter. $5 million, $400,000 salary. Marcus Maid, $32,000 a year as a night janitor. The numbers were so astronomical, they felt fictional. Dave Chen approached the microphone as Sterling stepped aside. We've analyzed the digital forensics, Dave said, his voice carrying technical authority. The skill level demonstrated is unlike anything I've seen in 20 years of cybersecurity. Orchestrated a complete counter-operation that reads like a spy novel. The FBI agents reviewing the case said it's the most sophisticated defensive cybersecurity work they've encountered outside of government black ops programs. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. His secret skills, developed through years of late-night self-education, had just been praised by federal law enforcement and corporate executives, but gained access to company systems. How he'd been quietly monitoring their security for months. How the son of a cleaning woman had developed expertise that surpassed entire departments of trained professionals. We believe this individual is among us today, Sterling said, returning to the microphone. If you're listening, please know that Sterling Tech owes you everything. We want to recognize your contribution properly. You've saved not just and their employees. Marcus felt Jennifer's eyes sweep across the auditorium, along with hundreds of others, all searching for their mysterious savior. He kept his expression neutral, but inside, his world was tilting on its axis. The meeting concluded with Sterling requesting that anyone with information contact him directly and confidentially. Marcus filed out with the rest of the staff, his mind racing with possibilities and consequences. As it was Jennifer, hurrying to catch up with him. Can I ask you something? Marcus stopped, his pulse quickening. Yes, ma'am. Last night, when we talked in the break room, you seemed so calm about everything. Everyone else was panicking, but you just kept working. Jennifer studied his face carefully. It was almost like you knew everything would be okay. How did you stay so composed? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus realized this was his moment of his cover, and return to his invisible life. Or he could take the leap that would change everything. Maybe, Marcus said carefully. Sometimes the people you least expect are the ones who can help the most. Jennifer tilted her head, something flickering in her expression. That's an interesting way to put it. She paused. Marcus, can I ask what you did before you worked here? I've always worked cleaning jobs. Marcus replied honestly. But I've always... Computers, how? Marcus looked into Jennifer's intelligent eyes and made a decision that would transform both their lives. Would you like to see? That evening, Marcus met Jennifer at a small coffee shop in Capitol Hill, far from the corporate towers where they'd first encountered each other. She sat across from him, her professional attire replaced by casual jeans and a sweater, looking more human and approachable than he'd ever seen her. Nervously, I'm not sure why I'm here. There's just something about yesterday that didn't add up. You were the calmest person in a building full of panic, and then today during Mr. Sterling's announcement, you looked like you were about to be sick. Marcus had spent the entire day wrestling with his decision, but Jennifer's kindness in the break room, her genuine concern for others during the crisis, and her obvious intelligence had convinced him that she, to show you, Marcus said quietly, could change both our lives. But I need you to promise me something. First, that you'll listen to everything before making any judgments. Second, that you'll keep this conversation confidential until we decide together what to do next. Jennifer leaned forward, curiosity and concern mixing in her expression. Marcus, you're starting to scare me a little, but okay, I promise. Marcus opened his laptop on the small table. Bought him 14 years ago, now transformed into something that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The screen displayed multiple windows of code, network diagrams, and what appeared to be real-time monitoring systems. This is Sterling Tech's network, Marcus said, pointing to a complex diagram on his screen. Every server, every workstation, every security protocol, I've been monitoring it for 2 years, not to cause harm. At night. Jennifer stared at the screen, her marketing background allowing her to recognize the complexity, even if she couldn't understand the technical details. Marcus, how is this possible? Our IT department has dozens of people with computer science degrees. How could you? When I was 12, my mom worked triple overtime to buy me this laptop, Marcus said, his voice soft with memory. She said education was the only thing no one could ever take. Cybersecurity, network architecture. Everything the university students learn in 4 years, I learned in 10 years of nights and weekends. He clicked through screens showing his self-developed programs, security protocols, and monitoring systems. I never intended to use these skills professionally. I thought I'd always be invisible, always be dismissed as just a maid's kid. But when I saw what was coming for Sterling Tech, I couldn't stand by and watch it. Amazement, confusion, and dawning realization. The cyber attack, the one that Mr. Sterling said was stopped by some mysterious expert, that was you. Marcus nodded, then proceeded to walk her through exactly what had happened. He showed her logs of the hacker's activities, evidence he'd gathered, and the counter-operation he'd orchestrated. She watched in growing astonishment as he demonstrated capabilities that seemed impossible for someone with no formal training. This morning, Marcus said, they were praising programs I wrote in my bedroom, using skills I developed while my mom slept on the couch, because we couldn't afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Jennifer sat back, overwhelmed. Marcus, do you realize what this means? You single-handedly saved a multi-billion-dollar company. You stopped international criminals. You've got skills that apparently rival government specialists, and you're working as a janitor. 1,000. Marcus corrected with a slight smile. This isn't funny. Jennifer's voice carried urgency. Do you understand what Mr. Sterling said today? $5 million reward, $400,000 salary. He's looking for you. You could transform your entire life, your mother's life. Marcus closed his laptop, his expression growing serious. And then what? I become the poster boy for pulling yourself up by your bootstraps? Harder? What about all the other brilliant kids in neighborhoods like mine who don't get discovered? Jennifer studied his face, seeing depths she'd never suspected. You're afraid of more than just the attention, aren't you? I'm afraid of becoming someone I don't recognize, Marcus admitted. For 3 years, Richard Sterling has treated me like I'm invisible, like I'm worthless. He's dismissed me as just a maid's kid with contempt in his voice. The same skills, the same person, but now I'm valuable because he needs something from me. They sat in contemplative silence for several minutes, the coffee shop bustling around them with Seattle's evening crowd. "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said finally. "What do you want?" "Not what you think you should want, not what would make the best story. What do you actually want for your life?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "People, I want my mom to stop worrying about medical bills and retirement. I want to prove that brilliance exists in places society doesn't bother looking." He paused. "And I want Richard Sterling to understand that the person he dismissed so casually just saved his entire world." Jennifer smiled, something calculating and determined appearing in her eyes. "Then let's give you all of that." The next morning, Jennifer requested a private meeting with Sterling, wearing the confident expression of someone holding all the cards. "Sir, I believe I've identified our mysterious cybersecurity expert," she said without preamble. Sterling looked up from his computer, immediate interest brightening his features. "Really? Who is it? One of Dave's team? An outside consultant we've worked with?" "Actually," Jennifer said, her voice carefully neutral, "it's someone you know quite well. Someone you've interacted with regularly for 3 years. Sterling's desk, displaying Marcus's cybersecurity portfolio, the programs he'd written, the monitoring systems he'd developed, the complete documentation of how he'd saved Sterling Tech. Sterling stared at the screen, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and disbelief. "This is impossible. Who created this? These programs are more sophisticated than anything our IT department has." "Marcus Thompson created all of this," Jennifer said quietly. "The called just a maid's kid last week." The color drained from Sterling's face. He looked from the tablet to Jennifer and back again, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "Marcus developed these skills over 14 years of self-education," Jennifer continued. "He's been quietly monitoring Sterling Tech's security for 2 years, acting as an unpaid guardian angel. While you dismissed him as worthless, he was single-handedly preventing the destruction." Chair, the weight of his assumptions crashing down around him. "The janitor. The night shift janitor is our cybersecurity genius? The same janitor you humiliated last week, the same person whose mother you insulted, the same employee you've treated as invisible for 3 years. Jennifer's voice remained professional, but carried an edge of judgment. For several minutes, Sterling sat in stunned silence, processing the complete inversion of his worldview. "Now? Probably cleaning your office," Jennifer replied, "since that's still his job." That afternoon, Sterling found Marcus in the server room on the 35th floor, methodically cleaning equipment that Marcus probably understood better than anyone else in the building. Sterling stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching the man who'd saved his empire organize cleaning supplies. "Marcus," Sterling said quietly. Marcus turned, his expression new. "Something you need?" Sterling stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. For the first time in 3 years, he really looked at Marcus, seeing not just a service worker, but a person with depth, intelligence, and capabilities that had been invisible to him. "I owe you an apology," Sterling said, his voice carrying genuine remorse. "Multiple apologies. Actually, I owe you everything." Marcus continued working, his movements steady and efficient. Sterling said, "Jennifer showed me your work, the programs, the monitoring systems, the complete documentation of how you saved our company. You're the one who stopped the cyber attack. You're the genius we've been looking for." Marcus set down his cleaning cloth and faced Sterling directly. "And how do you feel about that?" The question hung between them, loaded with 3 years of dismissal, contempt, and assumptions. Sterling struggled visibly with the answer. Ashamed, grateful, confused. He paused. "How did you develop these skills? How did someone in your position become more capable than trained professionals?" "Someone in my position?" Marcus repeated, his voice carrying a warning edge. "You mean someone poor? Someone whose mother cleaned floors? Someone without a college degree?" Sterling winced at his own words reflected back. "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant," Marcus said calmly. "Isn't how I developed these skills. The question is why you assumed I couldn't have them." The silence stretched between them. Years of class assumptions and prejudice being examined in the harsh light of reality. You're right, Sterling said quietly. I made assumptions based on your job, your background, your family's situation. I never saw you as a person with potential. I saw you as a category, a type, and I was completely wrong. Marcus studied Sterling's corporate Polish. My mother sacrificed everything for my education. She worked 3 jobs so I could have a laptop and internet access. She believed intelligence existed everywhere, not just in privileged families. She was right. She was right, Sterling agreed, and I was wrong in every possible way I was wrong. Marcus picked up his cleaning supplies. So what happens now? You offer me a job, write a check, and feel better about your assumptions? System works. I don't know, Sterling admitted. What do you want to happen? Marcus considered the question, the same one Jennifer had asked him. I want to use my skills to solve problems. I want to build something meaningful. I want other people like me to have opportunities. I want you to understand that brilliance exists in places you've never bothered to look. Then let's do that, Sterling said. All of it. Let's start with offering you the $100,000 starting salary, equity in the company, and complete authority over our digital security infrastructure. Marcus shook his head. I don't want to be your employee, I want to be your partner. Sterling blinked in surprise. Partner. I want to start a cybersecurity consulting firm. A real firm that recruits talent from unconventional places, community colleges, self-taught programmers, brilliant minds that traditional hiring process. Client, but not our only client. The audacity of the proposal left Sterling speechless. The janitor he'd dismissed was proposing to become a business partner. And I want 50% ownership of this new firm. Marcus continued. Not because of charity, but because of the value I bring you. Provide the initial capital and corporate connections, I provide the expertise and vision for finding hidden talent. Sterling stared at Marcus, seeing him clearly. Entrepreneur who'd been invisible in plain sight. That's a $10 million proposition. That's a fraction of what I saved your company, Marcus replied. And it's an investment in changing how our industry identifies and develops talent. After a long moment, Sterling extended his hand. Partners. Marcus shook it, feeling the weight of transformation. Partners. 6 months later, Thompson Sterling Cybersecurity had 15 employees, all grocery store clerk who'd taught herself ethical hacking. A community college student whose video game modding skills translated into brilliant network security. A retired military mechanic whose understanding of systems thinking revolutionized their approach to digital infrastructure. Marcus maintained his small apartment in Rainier Valley, but his mother now lived in a comfortable house with a garden and access to the best medical care available. In his old neighborhood, providing internships and training opportunities for local students, Richard Sterling had learned to see potential in unexpected places, and more importantly, to question his own assumptions about worth and capability. Their partnership had become a model for how privilege and talent could collaborate rather than compete. As Marcus stood in his office overlooking the Seattle skyline, he thought about the journey from invisibility to been validated, his skills finally recognized. But more than that, he'd helped create pathways for others who'd been dismissed as just something society deemed unimportant. The phone rang. Jennifer, now Thompson Sterling's director of operations, appeared in his doorway. Marcus, we just got a call from Google. They want to discuss a consulting contract, and there's a documentary crew here asking about filming our recruitment process. Marcus smiled. Sterling had called him just a maid's kid. That dismissive phrase had become the title of his autobiography, which was now being adapted into a major motion picture. Tell them we're interested in both, Marcus said, but remind them that this isn't a story about one person succeeding despite the odds. This is about changing the odds for everyone. The boy who'd been invisible had become impossible to ignore. But more importantly, he'd made hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to see their potential instead of their circumstances. Thank you for watching this incredible journey of hidden potential and second chances. If Marcus's story inspired you, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of people who overcame the odds and proved that brilliance can be found anywhere. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss an incredible story like this one.